Yep. Okay, cool.
Awesome. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started here pretty quick today. This is going to be a fairly short all-staff, dreary day. Hope some of you guys are at home in your PJs. That's sure where I'd like to be. Man, it's this weather has been shocking. I don't know if it's my age, being in my 40s, but I've been cold all day, which is weird. Brittany, do you feel cold? Is it just because I'm old?
It's very cold.
Okay, good. It's not just me. Man, I went out to lunch with Lee, Chris Turner, and Aaron, and it's just like you're outside for 5 minutes, and this is just ridiculous.
You had a nifty hat on, though.
Did you like that? That's stylish.
It's good.
That was sweet, man. It was pretty awesome.
It was awesome.
It's warm. When you don't have hair, you realize, man, that's a huge difference in regulating your body temperature. I have hair, just you can't. Eleanor tells me I have hairs, just a few hairs. All right, we're going to jump right in today. Thank you guys for joining us. Hey, our special guest today is Eric Donaldson, and I can't wait for you guys to hear from him. Those of you that don't know, I mean, he focuses most of his time out in Broken Arrow. And I know a lot of you support staff and Tulsa staff and Glenpool. You don't get a chance to go see what's going on at the other churches. But man, Broken Arrow is just over 2 years old. As I think everyone on this call knows, we're moving in next year to a more permanent home, at least for the next 10 years. And it's a church that's just really been growing in a day and age and a time where a lot of churches, whether it's our church or churches around the U.S. aren't growing. It is an area and a vibrant community where we have a growing church. So anyway, really proud of the work that team's doing, that Eric's doing out there, and can't wait for you guys to hear from him. And Chris is just giving it to him already. I can tell there must be some private text going on because I've seen a few grins over there. Eric, The floor is yours. Take it away.
Okay, this will be pretty short because I'm a lot more comfortable singing and playing than I am talking. So that's the good news for you guys. I want to talk about a universal problem and a universal challenge in the church that every church faces. It doesn't matter your doctrine, your denomination, or your how much you love or hate John Piper. Everybody struggles with these couple of things, and this main thing is church hurt, and it's everywhere, and it's a part of all of our churches everywhere. And I think it falls into a couple of basic categories. Either you did something wrong and your church maybe didn't handle it the right way, or you didn't do anything wrong and your church didn't handle it the right way. And so many people, especially in this area of the country, are dealing with church hurt. And there's people that say that you've never been to church, or this family's never been to church. And at this part of the country, I find that hard to believe that no one in your family church ever went to church. I think probably what's more realistic is somewhere down the line, you had an interaction with the church. Someone in your family had an interaction with the church that wasn't fantastic. And I think it falls into a couple of basic categories of those two things. Really, I think in a lot of these situations, what happens is we allow someone to speak as though they're the voice of God about us, about something that happened, about something that we did. And we allow that to become kind of part of our identity or part of our story. And then we separate ourselves out. And in a couple of cases, you run away from the thing that hurt you, and you back away from an area that was hard for you to go through. There isn't any person on this call that doesn't know somebody that's been through something like this. We see this all the time, even in scripture. After the crucifixion, Jesus comes back and he says, go tell the disciples and Peter. And he separates him out completely separate. Go tell the disciples and Peter. And that's because Peter was not going to go. He knew that Peter would think that's not me. He doesn't mean me. He means the disciples, but he doesn't mean me. And so Jesus specifically goes, go get the disciples and Peter. I think that's really big. I think that's really huge. There's such a difference between waiting for people to come to you and inviting them in. And for our churches, each one of our churches, there's such a big difference between saying, you're all welcome here. Everybody is welcome here. And leaving the four walls and saying, no, you're not just welcome here. I want you here. We want you to be here. I think that our churches have done an incredible job recently, Church on the Move as a whole, in handling these really sensitive subjects of church hurt. And church has become a place to heal. But I think just like people discount and they put God in a box and they say, I'm too far gone, God can't use me. I've already tried the church thing. It didn't work out. I think the other side of the ditch for church staff, for even just disciples of Christ, is to say, that person's not too far gone for God, but they're too far gone for me. I don't have the words. I don't know how to reach them. There's nothing that I'm going to be able to say that is going to move them even a little bit closer to church. I think it's easy for us, especially being in church work for a long time, to go, yeah, that's great. Somebody will get to them. And I know, here's the thing. We would never admit to that. You would never get pushed on that and say, yep, that's how I feel. That person's too far gone. God can't do anything with them. Of course not. That's monstrous. You don't believe that. And nobody on church staff believes that. But if we talk out loud about why we aren't out there, if we can actually be honest with ourselves about why we're not sending those text messages and calling people and being aggressive in a Christ-focused way, isn't that what we come to? Don't we come to some kind of fear of man or some kind of fear of failure? Don't we inevitably have to deal with that or hold that tension, like Blake says? You have to hold that tension of, why wouldn't I? And I think a lot of us are just putting ourselves in a box and putting God in a box to say, I can't reach that person. I don't know what to say. And I think in a lot of cases, that's okay. That's true. And the important part is just walking with the Holy Spirit to say, God, what do you want me to say in this moment? The last thing I'll say is this. As soon as I started talking about church hurt, the first time I brought that up, somebody came to your brain, somebody flashed across your mind. What if we all took this time, prayed about that person specifically, and then sent that text message, sent that voice memo, left that voicemail, made that call? Don't put God in a box. Don't say, I don't know what to say. Let's reach out to those people. Let's call those people. We're doing it now. I don't know about you guys, but in Broken Arrow, we're seeing new families all the time. And I talk to people at Tulsa, they're seeing new people all the time. Glenpool's seeing new people. Midtown's seeing new people all the time. Our people are doing this. Our church members are doing this. They're reaching out and saying something special is happening here. I think that we have to be at the front of that charge, to be calling people that we have had issues with in the past. People that have maybe been at Church on the Move for a long time, but aren't now. We got to call them anyway, even though it's awkward, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable. So my challenge to us is, can we call those people that fill us with a little bit of fear, fill us with a little bit of nervousness? Can we call them anyway and help bring them back into the fold, back in community, not just with God, but with us? I think we can. And I'm challenging myself in the next little bit to call and make some uncomfortable phone calls and shoot some awkward text messages. And that's my challenge for everybody. That's all I got.
Surely we're going to have some questions on this talk, aren't we? I mean, this is I don't know that I have a lot of stories personally, because I'm kind of a short timer here at Church on the Move, but I've been through a church split and leaving a church, and man, personal, seeing my parents go through stuff, and a lot of friends. And there's some of you on the call and some people that don't work here anymore. I know, just even as a volunteer, have connected with you when you've been on the outs with, whether it be Church on the Move or a church. So man, that's a sensitive subject you were brave to tackle, Eric. And I do think the challenge is merited and good. How do we navigate real, authentic relationships with people when we've met the real Jesus? When people leave our culture, leave our church, or leave a church. So man, that's a tough topic. So Eric, stick around at the end. I don't want to dominate the rest of this call, which I assume there's some questions, some feedback. would love for anyone that wants to stick around and talk about that. Stick around at the end of this call. Eric and I will be here to answer your questions, maybe to have some further dialogue of what this might look like or how to even bridge some of those gaps if you feel like you have some in your life. Hey, we're going to move on just to a couple quick announcements. Starting out with really talking about Fall Festival. Chris, would love for you to jump in and at least share kind of Tulsa's perspective. And Don and Brenda, if you guys have anything from a BA and Glenpool perspective to share, would love to hear it. Just what were the wins? What went well? You explain to those of us that weren't there or just served and didn't get to experience maybe some context.
Yeah, I would just say the view from my car was amazing. Looked like everybody out there was having a great time this weekend. Honestly, great job, team. Hats off to on the Tulsa team specifically, Ken Vaughn, Ruth, Aaron, all of our volunteers that chipped in. I heard we got actually a couple emails about just great volunteer that the parking team was doing great. Several of our staff members jumped in. I know Aaron was out there. John Kozad was out there whenever I pulled up, just people that are engaged in our church. So thank you guys so much. And a huge shout out to Lincoln. I know Lincoln was pivotal in making sure that the Tulsa location specifically there's a lot of setup that goes into pulling off an event of just that size and scope. We do know that we had several families that registered for Fall Festival that we're going to be able to follow up with. And, kind of per the strategy that Lindsay's been working on for the last several months and be able to connect with those families and follow up with them and send them some of the latest stuff that's going on at Church on the Move and really just be able to reach out to them and continue to build those relationships. As Eric's talking about, people for all different reasons are engaging with a church for the first time or looking for a church family. And I think it's great to be able to do these types of events that connect with people in a different way. And some of it, at a minimum, some of it just helps people feel more committed and more connected to Church on the Move. And so it was really cool to be able to see everyone engage with that. But I know I'm probably leaving people out. I know Stephen Torres, your team, big shout out to you guys for everything that you guys were able to help us with. I thought the whole thing, from what I could tell, looked fantastic. So thank you guys so much for that at Tulsa. Hats off to you. I know I was texting with Don and Brenda before this. Don, it seemed like we had a pretty good week at Glenpool as well. I think one of the highest weekends we've had attendance-wise since reopening at Glenpool this weekend too, which is something to celebrate. It even beat Pastor George weekend.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing, back to back, and the number of kids that were there was just huge. Our kids facility was maxed out. We were so pleased with that. The team worked really hard to put together that. We had a ton of course, volunteer involvement, and we had some families drive up, just pass by, drive up, get out of their cars, engage, and got to talk to some of our team. And we got commitments from a couple of them. They're going to come back next week and give it a try. So that for me is a huge win, totally worth it. And I can't say enough about the team as they put that together.
Yeah, same with Broken Arrow. And I know Dawn has the same thing. We were not only just setting up Fall Festival, we were also setting up to do church at the same time. And so it took all hands on deck. Shout out to obviously Sam for his vision, Joel, Eric, Hannah, Shanna, Ian, but also we had a couple people from Midtown that jumped over that were helping with worship that just said, yeah, we'll set up some stuff. So thank you, Hannah Butler. I don't think she's on here, but Ashton Davis. Just the all hands in, all team aspect was fantastic. A couple of cool stories of people that I met. One had just moved here a couple days ago, or a couple days prior to Fall Festival, from California, and put on their neighborhood board in Forest Ridge, hey, how do we find community? And a couple of people immediately jumped in and said, come to Church on the Move Broken Arrow, come with us and we'll meet you there. So we met several new families that this was their first experience with us. Also, another brand new family that just started the week prior that brought a couple new families with them this week as well. So really great opportunity to bring people in for community, but could not have been done without the full team. So great job. You guys are amazing.
Great stuff. Hey, two other people I need to shout out. Megan Mady and April Ebnett, great job. Saw them doing a lot this week, especially once Aaron had to not be at work for a few days. So anyways, just big shout out to those two for jumping in and really carried a lot of the weight down the final kind of stretch there. So thank you.
That's great. What an opportunity to reach people that are either unchurched, dechurched, or don't know anything about Church on the Move. I was at our Tulsa Fall Festival, and it really was an awesome vibe. Great job to the team. Man, it's exciting to spread our wings a little bit and reach people that aren't connected to us. And I know this met a lot of needs for internal families, but even looking at the email list for the Tulsa registrants, there's a lot of names we don't know on that list of people that got exposed to a church in a different way. So it's exciting. Hey, we're going to talk about Advent. I told you every week. And I've got Mr. Advent with us today. I didn't see him on the call, or I would have had him lead last week, although Casey kind of showed him up. So I'm glad it was Casey. But Stephen, man, give us some ammunition, some further clarification on what the heck is Advent? What are we doing practicing the way of Jesus like this? It feels like we're at a different church. What's going on?
Yeah, wow. Well, Casey is going to be a hard act to follow, and then mapping onto what Eric said as well. One of the things that a church is supposed to be is a safe place to interpret your story. And those of us who follow Jesus see ourselves as not inviting God to be a part of our story, but we see ourselves as connecting to the capital S story of Scripture. And there are some major arcs that connect every Christmas and every Easter, and really, the heart behind a church calendar, the heart behind some of the traditions of the historic church, is to create space to remember what God has done in the story of Scripture, in the story of redemption, and what He will do. And so when Brian first told me about some of our plans for Christmas and at all of our churches, trying to lead up to reaching as many people as we can in this season, and then really the anchor point being, or one of the key inflection points being this Christmas Eve service, we just started to dream a little bit and say, okay, what could we do that back then it's just like, who knows what's going to happen with shutdowns and with COVID, and are there going to be more? What could we do to really help connect people, to create space to encounter God together as a community? And so we just said, well, there so happens to be this church tradition called Advent. Could we do it in our own way? Could we do it in a way that makes sense to the Church on the Move culture? And so what I'm going to do is, if I can, I'm going to try to post the PDF. This is the unofficial Advent guide. I'm going to post it here in the chat. So if you want to see it, this is not for distribution yet, but if you just want to look at it, did that go through? You guys able to see that? Okay, good. And if for whatever reason you're not able to download it, just email me, Stephen@churchonthemove.com. I'll be happy, or Teams me, if that's still a thing, and I'll be happy to send it to you. But I want to take just a quick minute here to walk through what is Advent, and then just at a really high level, how are we going to participate together? And best way to do that is just by reading to you the first page here. So what is Advent? Here's a quick history of Advent. Christmas has long since gone commercial, hasn't it? When people think of Advent, they think of plucking chocolates from behind the window of an Advent calendar that counts down the days to Christmas. We have the brilliant holiday marketing minds of Cadbury to thank for that. They created the first chocolate Advent calendar in 1958. They seem to have the corner on the market of Christian holidays. The word Advent actually comes from the Latin adventus, which simply means arrival. Advent is the coming, the arrival of the presence of God Himself, God with us. For hundreds of years, followers of Jesus from a wide variety of church traditions around the world have set aside 4 weeks leading up to Christmas as a meaningful season of celebration and anticipation. And that's really all we're up to. Celebration. In celebration, we remember the earnest expectations and fervent prayers of faithful saints of old who longed for the Messiah to come to rescue them from sin and all its cronies. Humanity called upon the name of the Lord, and God answered. He arrived, living and breathing and walking with us. Advent is a way to experience their joy as we put their ancient, spirit-inspired words on our lips as a community. Anticipation. So Advent is something that really happened, but Advent will happen again. Jesus is coming back. At his first coming, the future kingdom of God burst into the present with Jesus' incarnation, crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension. Our spiritual enemies were disarmed, yet our world is not what it will be as we await the reign of our good King. We live in the already but not yet of Jesus' kingdom. At Advent, we give voice to kingdom come prayers of our own, looking expectantly for Jesus' return. In that way, this is a season of both celebration and anticipation. For Christians, Christmas is less sentimental than we think. Advent allows us to be honest about what's wrong with our world and to freely celebrate Christmas as good news. King Jesus has come. King Jesus will come again. And thirdly, participation. Beginning on the fourth Sunday before Christmas, each of the 4 weeks of Advent leading up to Christmas Eve will focus on a different theme of celebration and anticipation. Those 4 weeks are hope, peace, joy, and love. Jesus said, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me. Encountering God is not only possible this Christmas season. Jesus said, it's a matter of opening the door. Will you let him come into your home? He's waiting. So that's the theme for Advent. And maybe in the coming weeks, we'll talk about a little bit of how those Advent gatherings in your home what they could look like. And really, we've created it in such a way that it's not a rigid thing that you have to do this and do this. Really, you fill it with your personality. If you're a frozen pizza and Sam's Coke kind of a person, or Costco or whatever, great. If you're more of a fancy dinner person, great. If you're a bring your own food person, great. But you fill it with your personality and what your home looks like, and just be open to create space for God, to encounter God with community, and don't be surprised if he actually shows up. I can't wait for this season. I hope you're as excited about it as I am.
Hey, any questions for Stephen while we've got him here? Man, would love to answer any questions. That's powerful. Stephen, you'll have to go back and read the chat or save it. A lot of good feedback there. We definitely have to do an audio version of this, and I would agree. That would be powerful. Here's what I know. I have a lot of friends in oil and gas that think I'm crazy for working at a church. They have no interest in coming to a weekend service, but they'll do a Bible study with me. They do an Advent season with me because they are open to the fact that God is real. They just have no idea how God fits into their life or maybe the value system of church. And so I think, man, for any of you that might say, man, who would I do this with? Or maybe you're just going to do it with your immediate family. I think one thing to think about is, what about your neighbor? What about the person that you see every day at Quick Trip or at, Chick-fil-A or wherever your normal flow of life takes you? I think this is a massive opportunity for us as insiders to connect with people that are outsiders with nothing on the back end. You're not trying to get them to come to church. You're not trying to get them to become a tither. This is a chance to disciple someone right where they are and expose them to the transcendent. When I invite guys on a mountain men trip, the only promise I can make them is, if you lean in, this will change the trajectory of your life, because that's what happens when you have an encounter with God. And that's not just packaged at 10 a.m. on Sundays. It can happen at any moment in someone's life. There's kind of key elements and environments that need to be created for it. So anyway, I'll get off kind of my soapbox, but I think this is a massive opportunity to talk to your brother-in-law, to talk to your stepdad, to talk to your neighbor, to talk to your friend from college, or whatever it might be. If you want to bring church to someone, and maybe more importantly, you want to bring the real Jesus to someone, experience this season with them, experience that 30 days with them, in community with them. And man, there's an opportunity for God to do something amazing. Hey, we're about done for today. I think we have one more very important update. Danny, will you take it away with some update on our staff evaluations? We typically do this in the spring every year. Because of COVID, we've moved it to the fall. For those of you that were getting concerned, we have not forgotten about it. It is rolling out immediately, and I'd love for Danny to tell you all the specifics and kind of expectations.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So for those of you not there like Brian, or that haven't been here in the past or have, we do this annually. And because of COVID, we pushed it out to the fall, like he said. But the reason why we do this is just to look for a safe place for the supervisor and employee to have a conversation, whether that's about performance or biblical disciplines, and to come together each year to kind of mark this. But what you'll see is a little bit different on logistics this year. We have an HRIS system and Paylocity, so that's a payroll system we use. After this, Julie, I believe, will be sending out some correspondence. But what we've done is we put together some training. So this will be a self-evaluation kicking off. And then we'll kick off supervisor evaluation later. But right now we're just looking at self-evaluation kicking off. You'll get that email right after this meeting, but you should look to be able to log in and do your self-evaluation within 24 hours of receiving that email. So it's going to be pretty easy. Carrie Russell, if you haven't met her yet, has gone through and put some training together. And if you've been in Paylocity, you know it's a pretty easy system to use. But reach out to HR if you have any questions directly. We'd love to help you if you're having any issues with it. There'll also be a timeline attached to this email that will give you the dates you need to know. Carrie, is there anything else you would add? I'm assuming no, you're good. Okay.
I'm sorry. I had to use my microphone. No, I think, yeah, you covered all the bases, Danny. Just make sure that if there are any questions at all, just feel free to contact us, and we're happy to help you walk through. As I know this is new using the Paylocity, but I think it's fairly simple, and I don't think we're having a lot of struggle with it when we start this process for the self-evaluations.
Perfect.
Hey, one update, and then we're getting off two updates, and then we're going to get off the call. One, thank you for your participation in our staff culture survey. I think we ended up at like a 97% participation rate. Maybe 10 people between the church and the school didn't participate in total. That's incredible. That way exceeded my expectations, and I think blew away what Best Christian Workplace Institute has told us is typically expected. So, man, I'm so proud of you guys for participating. We should have the results back later this week on the survey. It takes that quick to turn around. And then we'll start taking that information and leveraging that to make Church on the Move the best possible place to work for the next year until we do the next one next year and try to make some more refinements. So as we talked about, that was totally anonymous. We have no idea, what anyone said, but we will have a summary of all those surveys, and we'll be able to leverage that real ground level truth, that value, to move our organization forward. So thank you for taking that seriously. And lastly, hey, our all staff next week is in person. Just a reminder. Number one, Trandy and I've heard from a handful of you that the time next week is kind of an inconvenient time, does not work well for you. And we know some of you won't be able to attend, and we are sorry for that. We've looked at several alternative times on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and just due to schedules and things already in motion, we really are not finding a better time to pull this off. So we are sticking with 3:30 Tuesday at 180 in the auditorium, prayer and worship, just around the season we're in. That's election day. And we know that puts some of you in a bind and that you may not be able to attend. And I apologize about that. We'll try to be more accommodating in the future. One request I have around that is please do not show up until 3:15 or later. As you guys know, the 180 building's a school during the week, and we do have some traffic flow issues around 180 until about 3:10, 3:15 every day. We'd love for all those parents and kids to be able to filter out of here before we start showing up. And so doors are going to open at 3:20. So from 3:15 on, feel free to come up here, use the parking lot, come on in the building. But from 3:30 to about 4:15, we'll be together with some praise and worship and prayer time. You know, there's uncertainty, as we know, leading into next week. And we can count on one thing, though, and that's God's word's true. The United States isn't some kingdom that we're building our lives around. There'll be more presidents and more election cycles and more craziness going on. I want us to be rooted and grounded in truth so that we can be there if there's any sort of unrest with people in our sphere, in our neighborhood, in our congregation that need something stable. The best time to grow a church is when there's crisis around us, economic challenges, uncertainty, because God is what we're all looking for. When we're all comfortable and things are kind of up and to the right, myself and all of us, we kind of replace that God-sized hole with all sorts of other things. It's a lot harder to do that whenever your environment's stressed and a little bit uncertain. So this is a chance to grow the church, but we've got to be healthy enough to do it. And so those that you can attend Tuesday, let's get together and corporately seek God, pray for our city, pray for our nation, and build up our faith in the one thing that we can count on. All right, Eric and I are sticking around. Stephen, will you stick around as well? If you've got Advent questions or church hurt related questions, we're going to do our best to respond. So anyway, everyone have a good day. See you next week in person if you can make it. Don't forget to vote Tuesday. That's a value. We want to create an environment where everyone can vote and value that. So get out and vote. All right. Love you guys. Have a good week. See you soon. Any questions for Eric or Stephen?